What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Thriving Minds podcast with your host, Walter Parada, where we strive to provide you with empowering talks so you can live to thrive. In today's episode, we'll be talking about habits, and once you form them, they form you. So habits are a specific way you act or what you tend to do on a regular basis without much thought. It's your overall tendencies of what you do that allows you to be on autopilot so you can think of other things. Since we all make, on average, about 35,000 decisions in a day, and after about 800, the quality of those decisions decline, those habits that you form can come in really handy as they save you time and energy, or they can set you back quite a bit. It's estimated that over 40% of our daily activities are habitual. Many things that we do, we might not realize that we do them. Things like washing your hands before and after using the bathroom or before or after eating can make the difference in keeping you healthy. Or things like complaining and blaming when things don't go your way can be a hole that you dig yourself into that sets you back. Habits are the foundation for everything that you do, and it's going to determine your future. You're the one that determines which habits you form, so it's very important that you develop ones that empower you. Habits are formed because they're efficient, where you don't have to give it much thought. You can go about your day a bit smoother, or at least it gives a feeling of it. Habits are formed by learning and repetition, and those that you develop are because it serve the purpose to what it is that you're striving for. So a habit of complaining could be to lessen the blow of things not turning out well, or the habit of reading is because you want to gain more knowledge. Your thoughts will set in motion certain behaviors that are triggered by certain things. So in the case of reading, when you're not familiar with something or you want more information, your thought will probably be, I need to know, and your behavior is to investigate, and this is done through reading. When you recall or envision something, you'll react as if it's real because your mind will perceive it, which will affect your body, giving it a greater sensation. So when you think about stressful things, you trigger a state of stress that makes you defensive and reactive, looking to how to survive. And as we all know, surviving is about just getting by right now, and that can compromise the ability to thrive. The more time spent being in this stressful state, the less you will excel at what you intend to do. Knowing this can actually form a feeling of calmness when you're in serious situations, where if things get tricky or overwhelming, you can get to a place of simplicity where you tell yourself, take deep, slow breaths, focus on one thing at a time. Having these reminders where you can repeat it to yourself, eventually you're going to ingrain it to where you can better manage stressful situations. Having the ability to relax your mind is also going to relax your body, where you can avoid feeling tense. This allows you to be nimbler so you can maneuver your way quickly to better handle yourself instead of just acting out of panic. You'll be a lot more balanced so you can see things with greater perspective that allows you to thrive. So eventually what you get is an increase in the amount of stamina so that you can handle a lot more things while further developing your composure. When we are tired or overloaded, we are more likely to fall into our habits, whether positive or negative, because it goes back to being efficient. It's about reverting to what we default to. Knowing this explains why the habits that we have are what transforms us. They determine where we're going. Think about it. When you're tired and you're not sure what to eat, you're more likely to go with something that you're very familiar and comfortable with and something that's convenient. So this could be a bowl of cereal or leftovers from the night before. Look to see what else you do when you're tired. How do you handle making decisions at the end of the day? How do you handle yourself when you have so much work to get done? How do you interact with people when you're tired? All these things make a difference and it shapes your life. When you know what your habits are, you have a better chance of managing them. You can recognize which ones are helping or hurting you, and you can focus on eliminating those bad ones, or at least minimizing them and replacing them with other ones that are helpful. This is going to be very crucial in those times that you're under an intense amount of stress, because you can count on them being reliable in those times that you're not at your best. Take the time to look at what you do daily from the moment you wake up, such as what's the first thing you do? How do you set up your day? How do you go about your day? How do you end your day? What's the hardest part of your day? And how do you handle it? Are you satisfied with the behaviors that you display? What behaviors are you not happy with? And how can you eliminate them? What would you like to incorporate that you can control so you can make your day go a lot smoother? Taking the time to evaluate what goes on in your day and how you handle yourself is a very proactive way to improve your overall experience. I think most of us would like our day to go a lot smoother, and this starts with having helpful habits. Come to think of the habits that you have as your teammates. Hopefully, you would want to have great teammates that better you and uplift you in those times that you really need them. You want them to be strong and protect you against pitfalls that you find yourself in at times. We all know we're going to have those bad days and those times that things are just not clicking, they're just not coming together, where the focus is just not there. And that's when those habits that you have really come up to magnify things. They're going to be the difference in everything that you do, especially in those times where you're distracted. Build and develop your teammates, your habits, so they can make the difference when you're lacking. They act as your support system that gets you to finish consistently in the proper manner. When you know you have this in your corner, it gives you greater confidence in whatever it is you choose to do. It's extremely hard to do everything at a consistently high level, and those great habits that you do develop and strengthen prevent you from experiencing a big decline in your performance or your day in general. So let's take a look at how we can start to develop the habits that we want that's going to better us. So begin with small, specific actions, and you'll have a better chance of it becoming habitual. Just like goals, they need to be very clear so you know what it is exactly that you're striving for. Maybe one of your goals is to form better habits, but if you leave it at that, that's too vague and it's hard to measure. That leaves a lot of confusion. A common thing that we all experience is adversity. And when you can create habits to better handle that, you set yourself up for great things. Small and specific action in a case like this would be, each time I experience adversity, I will remain calm by rubbing my hands together with some force for 30 seconds to release some of the tension or that anxiety that I feel. Action like this, that's very simple to follow, increases your likelihood of it sticking. You eliminate all the unnecessary things that might seem like they're needed, but really what is simple is what's best. The less you have to focus on, the more energy you have to divert to do it exceptionally well. And just focus on that small action where you vividly tell yourself what you will do. Eventually, what's going to happen is you'll probably not notice when it does become a habit, because it just falls into one of those things that you do without hesitation. Another helpful thing to do is add some sort of physical movement to the habit that you want to incorporate. So those habits where it's mostly mental, of maybe going through how you're planning out your day, or the self-talk that you want to incorporate to further empower yourself, what you could do is write this down or type it out. What it does is it further emphasizes the idea or those thoughts that you have, so it's not eluding you. Writing things down externally stores that information where you can physically see it, that it serves as a trigger for a certain behavior, and it becomes encoded into your brain where it's stored into your long-term memory. This essentially conditions you to that specific habit, with it being reinforced from a physical standpoint. Maybe you want to make journaling a habit daily because it can help clearly communicate the thoughts that you have. It helps you work through the decision-making process to make better choices. It helps to reduce some of the anxiety you might be experiencing. And it's also just a great way to find certain patterns that you might be exhibiting that you might have not been aware of without writing it down. I know for me, when I first started journaling, I made a conscious effort that I would do this every day. But in the beginning, I did have periods where I missed a day or two. but then I get back to it. Now I'm to the point where I don't even have to think about journaling because it's just a thing that I do without really putting an emphasis on it. If I have something to work through of what I'm trying to process, I'll journal in the morning to help me get a better sense of the different options that I have. And in the evening, it's just about decompressing to let go of some of the thoughts that might be hindering me going forward. Another way to condition yourself to develop the habit that you want is to incorporate a visual or a sound that triggers a certain behavior. This helps grab your attention and increases the probability that you'll develop this conditioned response. Think about it. When you hear a buzzer, an alarm, or something similar, it gets you to pay attention, and the instinct will be to react accordingly. So for some, hearing the alarm in the morning, it might trigger them to get up immediately. For others, it might be hit the snooze button to get themselves ready to get up in a few minutes. Either way, it's a signal that it's time to get up. Use whatever is necessary for you. Maybe you have a certain song that gets you activated for a certain habit. So you begin to associate that habit with the song, and that can make you feel good, or it gets you motivated to act. In the beginning, it's going to take a little bit of time for this to trigger you to behave in a certain way. So you got to be vigilant and consciously tell yourself when a certain sound or visual cue happens, that is the time to perform the act that you want. At first, you might hesitate and just stare where you might be fixated on the sound or the visual thing, but that's the time to say to yourself, that means to move now. You're programming yourself to default to a certain mode, kind of like when you go through a fire drill, where that loud alarm, when we first hear it, it might make us wonder what's going on. But that loudness is there to get us to move away from it because it physically hurts our ears. Make the habit that you want to incorporate physically accessible, where it's just clear and obvious that it's just in the way and you might as well get it done. So if you have the plans of studying for a certain exam, get your book or whatever study material in your line of sight where you have to see it, and this serves as a reminder of what you need to get done. And make sure to clear out all the other stuff that could be a distraction to what it is that you need to get done. So in the case of studying for that particular exam, you put your book on your nightstand or your desk and make sure to remove any other books or pictures or things from that area. That way you have a lot less to look at, and then you can be concentrated on the book itself. The lot less you have to look at, the lot less you have at competing for your attention. It's about making the distractions difficult to get to you so you can focus on what's simple. First beginning to do this might seem awkward, but those are the times to actively remind yourself, that's the visual cue that's there to remind me of what needs to get done. And just like other techniques, you will not notice much when it does become a habit because you've gradually worked yourself into it. To further make it appealing, make sure to attach a reward each time you complete the action that you want to incorporate. Now, this takes discipline because it's about self-regulating yourself, but you got to ensure that you follow through on it. So if you want to make workouts 4 days a week a habit, you can attach a reward such as, I'm only going to watch my favorite shows after I complete the workouts. This gives you something to look forward to. Now, obviously, you could just watch your shows and not work out, but that's where the discipline comes in. I can remember a time when I was a kid, one of the greatest things that I had to look forward to on a weekly basis was Saturday morning cartoons, as they had my favorite shows. This created a high level of anticipation, and when Friday afternoon came, I was so ready to wake up the next day. And then when Saturday arrived, I was just elated with the reward that I was about to get to enjoy. Because I did not have access to these shows whenever I wanted to, I value Saturdays a lot more. There was very little discipline on my end to not watch them because I couldn't. But this did develop a level of discipline that helped me incorporate certain helpful habits for myself. You can do the same by attaching a reward at the end of the behavior that you want to incorporate. Do things that make it a little bit harder to get that reward. Put some sort of inconvenience in the way, such as that reward being out of your sight, so you're not tempted to go directly to it instead of what you should be doing. Obviously, the key thing that's going to be needed in incorporating the habits that you want is a high level of accountability and discipline that you hold yourself to. Without that, it's going to be very difficult to consistently do what you set out for yourself, because there are going to come those times and those days where you just don't feel like it. Even the small actions in the beginning are going to seem annoying when you just don't feel like doing it. You might tell yourself, what's 1 or 2 days? But if you let that happen, then momentum builds in the opposite direction where it's not helping you. You got to remind yourself that what you're doing right now is setting yourself up for a better tomorrow, that it's worth doing right now for a small amount of inconvenience. What could help out to make you more disciplined is to have a connection to why you want to form the habit that you want. Briefly explain and write it out of what that habit is going to do for you, and then briefly explain what's going to happen if you don't get that habit incorporated. This helps you to clearly identify what the end goal is and what is the missed opportunity if you don't capitalize on your end. Make it as simple as possible. There's no need to write out an essay on why the habit is important. It can be as short or as long as you need it to be, but as long as you can better understand and make a connection with it. When you're connected to it, the more power you have that makes you gravitate towards it. So the habit of wanting to read every day for whatever amount of minutes you decide, whether it's 10, 15, 30 minutes, just stating that of wanting to read a set amount of time, it's good, but it's not seeing what it could lead to. We all know reading is good for us, right? It makes us gain more knowledge, makes us think, and it makes us more engaged. But when you can clearly identify what reading daily for a set amount of time is going to do for you, you have specific reasons for doing it. It could be as simple as, by me reading more, I make myself more valuable, that allows me to make more money. Or it could be, me consistently reading every day allows me to make my ideas a reality, that I can make my dreams happen. Whatever habit that you want to incorporate, just make sure it's relatable to you. Everybody has their own reasons for why they have certain habits that works for them, but you got to find what works for you. You can lean on others for ideas on what habits they have that can help you, but ultimately, make sure that it's the right fit for you. Your habits are not set in stone. You can change them and adopt new ones, but the longer that you have certain habits, the harder it is to kick them. Just know that forming new habits takes time, so you got to be patient with yourself. It can take anywhere from 18 to 254 days for a person to form a new habit. So that's an average of 66 days for it to become automatic. Maybe it might be sooner before you develop certain ones, or maybe it might take longer than those 254 days. Don't let that discourage you if it does take longer than what you expected or what others might expect of you. Be vigilant in your efforts, properly executing the action that you intend to do. There's going to come those times where you hit a rough patch and you're not consistent with the action that you take. Make sure to evaluate and hold yourself accountable when you do not execute on what it is that you want. Knowing that you create your habits and your habits create you is just so empowering, because it means your future is truly in your hands. You have so much impact and say on how things play out. While they might not unfold exactly how you envision, or they might even turn out a different way than what you envision, you still had an effect on how things develop. Let go of viewing situations or events occurring in your life as things that happen to you, but things that you position yourself for. And when things don't turn out your way, challenge yourself by saying, how am I going to respond to the situation that I'm in? You could choose to pout and complain about how unfair things were, that you put in all this hard work and you're not getting what you wanted. Or you could choose to see what happened what was learned, and what you're going to do going forward. Really come to evaluate all the habits that you have and list them as being helpful or harmful. Really be honest with yourself and state the facts. Leave the emotions to a minimum. Make this a priority and write it down, because just in your head, certain thoughts are going to elude you, and by having them written down, you can always reflect on them at a later time to give it further thought. It might be helpful to get feedback from the people who know you very well on the habits that you have, because they're going to be seeing it from an outside perspective to help you catch blind spots you might be missing. Be prepared that certain things that they say, it might hurt to know, but look past that and come to appreciate the effort that they give. Let go of trying to justify certain habits that you might be sensitive to, but really come to embrace the objectiveness in it. The situation or circumstances that you find yourself in are largely because you position yourself for them in certain ways, and all this comes down to the habits that you've chosen. If you're not happy with certain ones, you can work hard to eliminate or minimize them, but a great way to kick those bad habits is just to develop new ones to replace it. It's much harder to try to stop doing something because it involves resisting as opposed to getting yourself in motion in a new direction. Remember what it is that you're striving for. Whatever your goal or destination, identify what habits would get you to where you want to be. They are either going to help you make it happen or prevent you from getting there. We all have a responsibility for ourselves, and the quicker that you can accept that responsibility, the greater impact you have towards building the life that you desire. Build the right habits for you, and they will build on themselves, kind of like compound interest, where it just grows in value over time. The little things matter because they make the big things possible. Add that with consistency, and you have a greater chance of experiencing wonderful opportunities. Some might say those who have success are because they're lucky, and this comes down to when preparation meets opportunity. Many of us have opportunities, but how many of us are actually prepared for when they arise? Because when they do, they don't just sit around to see if and when you're ready. If you're not prepared, then that opportunity will sometimes be gone very quickly. It doesn't matter where you are in life right now, but you can do certain things to improve on it, and it simply comes down to those behaviors that you display. Habits are not this big scary thing that are difficult to incorporate. They are only an accumulation of your behaviors. The hard part is having the stamina to consistently execute those behaviors that are needed. The beginning is when we have all this pent-up energy and motivation to improve ourselves. And then as time progresses and we're not seeing certain results that we expect, our want to be better wavers. Be vigilant in your pursuit to improve yourself, because ultimately they will transform you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're interested in more topics like this, become a Thriving Minds member at www.thrivingminds.live. It's your personal development resource to help you build the right mindset so you can live empowered. All right, until next time.